We've covered Starlight and bench IDs so far, now it's time for the final preparation we can make before our first fight. The starting gifts are probably the most impactful buffs we can utilize since the release of the gift search function. I will first go over the starting gift categories that are worth mentioning, all 3 of them, before exploring the new search function that completely breaks solos. Beginning with the Rupture category. Fluorescent Lamp is the king of ego gifts. By default, it randomly gives 1 haste or 1 damage up for each enemy or body part with Rupture. Okay, that sounds good and all, but not every ID can inflict Rupture. Well, they don't need to. When maxed out, you will always get at least 3 haste and damage up, even if none of the enemies have Rupture on them. And importantly, the ore we had at upgrade 0 turned into an end with the second upgrade. But let's say we pick Star Shower and can bring in another starting gift. Barb Lasso inflicts Rupture on all enemies at the end of a turn. The amount doesn't matter, the all enemies part does, however. Combining Lamp and Lasso, you will have 9 damage up and 9 haste in a regular 6 enemy encounter, or just 4 of each in a single body part boss fight, starting from the second turn onwards. Speed is king in solos. If you can attack before the enemy, then you can heal, stagger, or even kill the enemies before they stagger you to death. Smoking Gunpowder is pretty good for actual Rupture IDs due to its damage increase. Still, unless you can take all 3, you shouldn't pick this as the combo from the other 2 is just simply better. Battering Flashlight is the gift to use if your ID struggles staying alive. At the end of each turn you get 2, 3 or 4 charge barriers, which means a shield of 6, 9 or 12 starting from the second turn. It may not seem like much, and that's because it isn't, but it is a sort of regenerating second health for chip damage that's useful for IDs with a low health pool or 3 stagger thresholds. Charge Barrier also gives charge count equal to its value, so you can take advantage of other charge gifts by only having Flashlight. Flashlight is the only reason I pick charge as a starting keyword, even with charge IDs. Except I lied. Due to the ego search function that was released soon after my Starlight video, this gift has since lost its purpose as a starting gift. You won't need the minuscule amount of shields from Flashlight because you can get something much better. Just keep to Lamp. However, I still think it's worth mentioning because the ego search function could just be exclusive to this MD. So in the case of a future mirror dungeon where you can just take all the busted gifts at the start, the value of Flashlight's chip damage mitigation will increase. Resolution is the She Association gift and it is beyond goated. By default, She IDs take 50% less damage and have their health capped to 75%. The first upgrade brings the damage reduction to 75% and caps their health to 50%, and the second upgrade to 49%. With it, Heathcliff and Ishmael will always have their health conditionals active, while all 3, including Dawn, have no more stagger thresholds remaining. The final upgrade may not seem worth it for only 1% of health, which you could also lose by taking any amount of damage, but it also turns the +1 clash power into final power, meaning that from the second turn onwards, your damage rolls will also be buffed. In my opinion, this is the only gift worth taking here. The new active search function is a game changer for solo runs. We can now choose up to 3 tier 1, 2, 3 ego gifts to start a run with, and we even have access to the keywordless category. It does cost an increasing amount of Starlight the more gifts you take, however. Bringing in only 1 gift costs just 70 Starlight, and the second one is 90 Starlight for 160 total, and the third costs an extra 110 for a combined amount of 270 Starlight. I think 270 is really cheap for the ability to bring in 3 game-changing gifts for solos. But what are these insane gifts that change everything? Well, with the release of the 6th Walpurgisnacht, we've got the single most overpowered gift for solos, Ashen Constellation's Blessing. The Blessing status effect grants 2 protection and changes any of our physical weaknesses back to normal as long as we are not staggered, meaning Slash, Pierce and Blunt attacks will never have their damage multipliers go above 1 or normal if we aren't staggered, and the 2 protection that Blessing gives also helps to further reduce the damage we take. Blessing is so busted that you can unironically autopilot most of a solo run, or even take some risks that could end your run if you didn't have Blessing. You still can't ignore damage from status effects like Bleed, Burn and Rupture, as these deal fixed or true damage that ignores damage reduction. It is simply the best ego gift in the game currently for solos, and unless they nerf it to the ground or release something that does the same but better, it will stay the best solo gift in the game, until you get staggered. But that's where our next gift comes in. Manurship Music Box once per encounter unstaggers you on turn end. So even in the rare case of getting hit too much, you can essentially erase your mistake and continue on fighting at an arguably better state than before, thanks to a stagger threshold now missing from your headbar. Previously, the problem with Music Box was that it could only spawn in 1 floor pack, Dregs of the Manor, which in hard mode could only spawn as the first floor. The issue is that this floor pack is brutal for a first floor, as most of the enemies have either a lot of bleed or a lot of rupture, and in the case of the Dead Rabbits boss, it's both. However, with gift searching, you can just start with it, or not, because Blessing alone is almost busted enough to carry you through the entire game. If somehow Blessing alone isn't enough, Huge Gift Sec gives 2 more protection, as well as both poise potency and count. By taking Blessing, Gift Sec and upgrade level 2 Starlight Guidance, you can have 6 unconditional protection every turn. That LCB Sinclair solo that I kept dreading suddenly started to sound easy, and it was. But not because of Music Box. Emergency Investigator badge is insane. By default it only works on the 3rd ID in the deployment order, however once you reach the 2nd upgrade it also works on the 1st. Essentially once per encounter, instead of dying you recover 80% of your max HP and recover from stagger. Additionally, for the rest of the encounter you will have +2 attack power-ups starting next turn after activation. The only downside to this gift is that you need to upgrade it twice before you can use it, but even that is just nitpicking. This is a get out of jail free card that pretty much also removes all of your stagger thresholds after activation, unless you die to bleed or a different status, because those don't stagger. Meaning that after you die, probably from getting staggered to death not having Blessing active, you will never deactivate Blessing since you can no longer get staggered. Impulse Weight was the solo gift until Blessing came. It is still great, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't start with it as survivability is so much more important than damage. As for healing, I think the best general healing gift in the game is Lithograph, as it heals when staggering enemies and the activation rate is uncapped. Grey Coat is another top tier healing gift as it heals based on damage dealt, which could fully heal you from just one ego skill. The rest aren't really worth considering when it comes to searching. Ego resource generators are even simpler. If your ID has a lost affinity skill, then bring Coffee and Cranes, otherwise Oracle is my go-to pick. Coffee just gives you a random resource you haven't used or every resource you haven't used if you've used a lost affinity skill. Oracle on the other hand doesn't generate resources, instead it converts the most on resource into the least. I love Oracle because it's consistent. The others like Zippo Lighter or random. You could get the same 3 resources for the entire run and have a deficit of the rest because of the randomness. It already happened to me a few times in the past and I'd rather not repeat it. Fluorescent Lamp, Bard Lasso, Ashen Constellation Blessing, Emergency Investigator Badge, and Huge Gift Sec is my new go-to loadout. You have the damage increase and speed from Lamp and Lasso, a ton of survivability thanks to Blessing and Gift Sec, along with some poise generation, and a revive combined with a stagger recovery with the Investigator Badge. This combo trivializes most encounters in the current Mirror Dungeon, and it even lets you run exceptionally bad IDs comfortably, like LCB Sinclair, who I am sorry for mentioning twice, but he is the single worst ID in the game, especially when it comes to soloing. The only real issue for this combo are floor packs with a ton of bleed or rupture, because fixed damage doesn't care about your mitigation. This combo is overkill for most IDs, so feel free to switch things up and go for stuff you don't normally play around with, or challenge yourself by going to harder team packs, since, you know, Dulcinea is getting kinda lonely. And that about does it. We are nearing the end of this guide series. The only thing left that I want to cover is the miscellaneous tips and tricks I've picked up over my time soloing. So, enemy targeting, force corrosion, resistance changing, and fusion, because yes, I finally learned how to and what to fuse, surprisingly enough. Thank you all for watching. As always, leave your questions, suggestions and complaints down below. I try to read all of your comments even if I don't respond. I also try to stream solos at least once a week, and I even finally started streaming Lobcore. I played Lobotomy for about 26 hours-ish before, but I never got close to finishing that torture device, so I'm hoping that through streaming I'll be able to finish it. Come by sometime and maybe you'll become a nugget. I've been Silver, see you around.